What's up, guys? Welcome back to Zilla MMA. I am your host, as always, the Zilla. Want to start by thanking you guys for all the viewership on the videos. Had some really good success on the review of UFC 295, so really appreciate all of you viewing that one. If you haven't yet, go check it out. Would like to remind you now to go like and subscribe. Liking lets me know you're liking the content we're putting out, and subscribing lets you know when we're putting out more. So, really helpful to the channel. Really motivates me to put out more video clips for you guys, give you more information. So, if you could do that for me, it's really appreciated. This is a video that I wasn't sure I was going to make just because I'm not really a boxing guy. I've avoided talking about any boxing up to this point on the channel and probably won't talk much about boxing going forward. Not because I don't respect what boxing has done for mixed martial arts. I really do. I realize the importance of it, especially in the popularization of combat sports in the United States and abroad. But it's a dead sport. And if it wasn't before Saturday, it certainly is now. This fight is an example of everything that's wrong with boxing now. And I don't think it gets highlighted as much anymore how corrupt of a sport boxing has become. Just because the most popularized fights are between YouTubers and TikTokers and washed out fighters. It's been this way for a long time. And it happens in a lot of major fights, and people don't really see it. And I used to really enjoy boxing a lot more until I really saw what was going on with this, especially once you come in from a gambler's perspective. If you bet on these fights at all, it gets really tough getting burnt like this week in and week out. Full disclosure, I did have a small bet on Francis. Was money I was fully prepared to lose. Wasn't anything I was expecting to win. And Francis certainly surprised me in this spot. So we'll go ahead and look at it. I watched it live. I've rewatched it once since. And in my opinion, it's very clear cut 95-94 Francis Ngannou. I can see a world for the judge who scored it 95-94 in favor of Tyson Fury. That world exists for me. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. Scoring this fight 96-93 for Tyson Fury when Francis Ngannou had a knockdown in this fight is a travesty. It's embarrassing, and it's the reason boxing's never coming back. And all of you old heads who love the sport and think that it's superior to MMA and don't want to watch UFC and want to watch boxing, you just watched the heavyweight champion of the world, in the mind of some people, the best heavyweight of all time, lose to a UFC fighter, former UFC fighter, MMA fighter, in his first ever boxing match. And you can deny it all you want. You would say he didn't lose. 96-93 is a travesty. And it's pretty clear cut to the public that he did. And you can make excuses. Some of your excuses may be valid. Tyson Fury may not have properly prepared for this fight. I think that says a lot more about him than it does about Francis. But he may not have properly prepared for this fight. He may not have come in with the same mindset he does when he's boxing a seasoned opponent. Though that's something boxers rarely do. Because boxers get propped up by having fake fights, pretty much. The person's legitimately trying, but they're not nearly on the level of the boxer that they are facing, because they want to prop up these fighters and make these big money prize fights, which I don't think many people care about anymore. I certainly don't, and I consider myself an enormous combat sports fan. and I don't care about it at all. Tyson Fury is easily the most entertaining person left in boxing. I don't find it to be particularly close. And the performance that we saw here, where Francis Ngannou managed to knock him down and, in my opinion, won this fight 95-94, shows that MMA is the superior sport. I mean, all the people who made the argument, oh, well, in a real fight, Tyson wouldn't get out of the first minute against Francis with the smaller gloves, with kicks, the throw a head kick, throw a leg kick. Not to mention the grappling game that Francis developed later into his MMA career. It'd be embarrassing. And I just don't see a way back for boxing at this point. Let's look at it from the standpoint of damage that these fighters take. There's no question at this point that boxing is the more detrimental sport to its fighters. Taking the shots from these big gloves, being able to eat more shots, take more head damage, being able to lay on the mat for 9 seconds, get back up and continue fighting. It doesn't work that way in MMA because it's not safe. It's not healthy. It doesn't make sense. And so we're seeing a bunch of these massive, once massive boxing brands like HBO and Showtime go to the wayside. There is a negative in this for MMA, and that's actually something I wanted to touch on as well. I think this is very positive in a lot of people's minds for mixed martial arts. It shows that UFC fighters can compete with these boxers. They can't hide and pretend that this isn't real fighting anymore. I've heard a bunch of crazy things from boxers trying to illegitimize what MMA fighters do, which is crazy to me. But I do think this could be a bit of a detriment to mixed martial arts, and here's why. A lot of people lack understanding of the difference in pay structures between boxing and MMA. A lot of fighters go to boxing once they are developed for these big money fights and then come back and go after MMA for not properly paying their fighters. And I'll be one of the first ones to stand up. I think the UFC can't afford to pay the fighters more. I think they need to restructure their bonus systems. I think all this show and win and all these bonuses, fight of the night, I don't think all that's necessary. I think all that could be tied directly into their base pay. I think that they could afford to pay them more. I think it would be beneficial for the UFC to stop trying to have a sponsorship for every single thing, from their kit that they wear to the kit that they have to come out in before the fight. I think leaving that open to sponsorship for the fighters would be beneficial to them. All that being said, people have this idea that boxers are paid so much better than MMA fighters. What you don't realize is the top tier of boxing is paid better than the top tier of MMA. But these guys making 10-10, 20-20, whatever they're making in MMA, boxing, you're basically fighting for free if you're not one of the top guys. And so I have a bit of concern that there's going to be a lot of MMA fighters. We've now seen it with both Conor and Francis now, where they will seek this boxing career later in their fighting career, and it's because there's more money when you are a top guy. And I'm concerned that we may start losing out on big MMA fighters in the heydays of their careers because they make this move. They've seen that now. Not only have they seen that fighters can make this transition and make the money, now with Francis, they've seen fighters can make this move and be very good in this discipline. And so we've already missed out on what could have been one of the biggest fights ever in Ngannou Jones. Not going to fully get into that, how whose fault it is and all that, but we definitely missed out on that. And I'm concerned we could miss out on other big fights from some of these elite guys that we all love to watch in MMA. But overall, just I think a net negative event. Outside of for Francis personally. I love Francis Ngannou, and even a bit of a net negative for him because he didn't actually receive the win that he deserved. But overall, a net negative for combat sports, in my opinion. I think the more we move away from boxing, the better it is for the future of the sports. But that's just my opinion. I think a lot of people very clearly on Twitter and pretty much every media outlet realize that Francis Ngannou won this fight, that we may be seeing some changes in how fighters are viewed, how mixed martial artists are viewed. Because if he can just step in like that, and I know this is something he'd been working towards. If you've heard anything about Francis's story, he didn't just wake up one day and decide to become a boxer in the way that Conor McGregor kind of more did. Francis's dream was to be a boxer, and he found his way in MMA. But I think this could open Pandora's box for more fighters to take this route. And it's something I'm hoping doesn't happen. But anyways, guys, get down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this event. Obviously, very interesting at the very least. Again, not going to talk too much about boxing in the future. This is just such a massive event for mixed martial arts and for combat sports as a whole that I felt the need to talk about this one, but not something I'm interested in doing all the time. I should have my video out for this week's UFC Fight Night, my prediction video, coming out on Wednesday. So look out for that. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. But until then, guys, thank you and enjoy the rest of your weeks.